A rapidly deteriorating old man, deeply in denial about his failing faculties in charge during a time of crisis? That would never happen. This is a review of the Star Trek The Original Series episode, The Deadly Years. If you have not seen this episode and you don't want to know what William Shatner will look like as a 90-something-year-old, be warned. Spoilers beyond this point. An installment of a Star Trek show where the lead is so old and frail it looks like he can barely walk? That would never happen. A landing party from the Enterprise beams down to a colony for a scheduled check-in, only to find it apparently deserted. Kirk orders everyone to spread out and look around. Chekhov wanders into a darkened building. When he reaches the center of the room, the lights come on and surprise! It's a dead guy! Encountering unexpected corpses is apparently not Chekhov's favorite thing. He screams in terror and runs to find Captain Kirk. The others come in to examine the dead guy. McCoy declares that he died of old age, but Spock insists that no one living on this colony was that old. Then, two more old people wander in, introducing themselves as Robert Johnson, leader of the colony and legendary purveyor of the Delta Blues, and his wife Elaine. Kirk asks their ages, which they give as 29 and 27, respectively. It turns out Mr. and Mrs. Johnson are the only two survivors of the colony. Everyone else has died of old age, and the Johnsons won't be long behind. They're taken up to sickbay aboard the Enterprise, and they've obviously gone senile. All Robert can do is babble on about how beautiful his wife is, the poor dope. Kirk calls a meeting in the briefing room to discuss the situation. Along with the regulars, there's also Commodore Stocker, who is on his way to take command of a nearby starbase, and Dr. Wallace, who is an endocrinologist and Kirk's ex-girlfriend. So far, no explanation for the advanced aging of the colonists. They're close to the Romulan neutral zone, so Kirk throws out the possibility that this is the effect of a new Romulan weapon. Whatever it is, Kirk declares that they are remaining in orbit of this planet, Gamma Hydra 4, until they find the answer. That means Commodore Stocker might be a little late for his new job at the starbase, but he'll just have to suck it up and deal with it. I don't think they'll fire you, dude. You're the boss. Kirk and Wallace have one of those "we broke up but we're still into each other even though we both know it won't work" conversations. Kirk was too devoted to Starfleet. She was too devoted to her medical career. She got married to a fellow doctor who has since died, making her very much available. We all know how it goes. Later on the bridge, after Commodore Stocker whines a little bit about not being at his precious starbase, "We have better facilities at the starbase. We could investigate the aging disease there." Kirk, in an ominous sign of things to come, has a bit of a senior moment where he orders Sulu to maintain standard orbit of the planet after already giving him that order at the start of the scene. The Johnsons die in sickbay. Members of the landing party also start to show symptoms of advanced aging. Lieutenant Galloway reports she's becoming hard of hearing. Kirk suddenly has advanced arthritis. McCoy is beginning to go gray, and Scotty has become Robert Frost. Everyone who beamed down to the colony is experiencing the rapid aging disease except for Chekhov, who for some reason seems completely unaffected. So Kirk says to McCoy, "Right, find the cure by torturing Chekhov." While McCoy and Nurse Chapel conduct experiments on Chekhov, Wallace waits for Kirk in the corridor. Kirk says, "I know what's going on here. Your husband was many years older than you, and now that I'm getting old thanks to this disease, you're super into me. Well, I've got bad news for you. The arthritis must not have spread to my entire body because there's one part that isn't stiff at all." Later, Spock wakes Kirk up from a nap on the bridge to give him some good news. They've discovered the cause of the rapid aging disease. It's radiation from a comet that recently passed by. Kirk orders Uhura to send Starfleet Command a message about the comet, and since they're so close to the Romulan border, he tells her to encrypt the message using Code 2. Uhura's like, "The Romulans have broken Code 2. So Kirk says, "Fine, then use Code 3. Jesus Christ, you need me to type it for you too? Fuck!" Stalker pulls Spock aside in the corridor and says, "Hey, listen, Captain Kirk is rapidly losing his marbles, and I can only assume that's bad for the operations of the ship, so I'm gonna need you to step in and take command of the Enterprise." Spock's like, "I can't though, because I'm losing my marbles too. Just a little slower than the others on account of being half Vulcan. I'd estimated my current condition. I'm only 2 or 3 times smarter than everyone else on the ship. You really expect me to take command when I'm in such pitiful shape?" Stalker quite correctly points out that if Spock considers himself unfit for command, then surely that must mean Kirk is unfit as well. There's only one thing to do then: convene a competency hearing. That's right, it's a stealth courtroom episode! There will be a hearing to determine if Captain Kirk is still fit for command. But first, Kirk and McCoy are in sickbay for the ongoing torture of Chekhov when Lieutenant Galway, in the advanced stage of the aging disease, staggers in, collapses in Kirk's arms, and dies. Well, it was considerate of her to do it right there with main characters present. McCoy estimates that the rest of them will be dead in a matter of days, maybe hours. Well then, let's get this hearing underway. The hearing does not go well for Kirk. Sulu, Yeoman Atkins, and Uhura testify about Kirk forgetting orders. Uhura's testimony about Kirk telling her to use Code 2, the broken encryption key for the message to Starfleet, is particularly damning. When Kirk insists on speaking up in his own defense, it only makes matters worse. He forgets the name of the planet they're orbiting twice, blames Spock for trying to relieve him of command, and generally acts like a doddering old fool who shouldn't be allowed to drive a car, much less a gigantic spaceship. The committee votes to remove Kirk from command, and Commodore Stalker, as the senior officer aboard, becomes acting captain. Spock doesn't like this because, despite his high rank, Stalker has never actually commanded a starship before. Stalker's like, "Oh, come on, how hard can it be? All I have to do is order other people around. Watch this. Mr. Sulu, set a direct course for my sweet, sweet starbase." Sulu's like, "A direct course from here will take us across the neutral zone." Stalker says, "Oh, we'll just cut through real quick. I'm sure the Romulans won't mind. It'll be fine." Spock informs Kirk that he's been relieved and Stalker is now in command, and Kirk doesn't take it well. He blames Spock for the whole thing, calls him a traitor, and he's like, "Get out, I never want to see your face again, get out, get out!" Then Kirk turns to Wallace and says, "Hey, let me ask you something, and be honest. Why doesn't my son ever call me?" With some time on his hands before he dies, Kirk goes to Dr. McCoy's office where he finds Spock and gets in a good line asking Spock if he wants to relieve Dr. McCoy of duty too. You really zinged him with that one, Jim. Still without a cure for the aging disease, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy retrace their steps at the colony one more time. They remember that Chekhov discovered the first dead colonist by himself and that he reacted with terror, screaming like a little boy and peeing his pants and running outside. McCoy's like, maybe that's it. Chekhov was such a pathetic, cowardly crybaby that the aging disease didn't want anything to do with him. Also, it could have something to do with the adrenal activity triggered by his fear response. I don't know, let's see if we can come up with something using adrenaline. They're finally on track to find a cure, and just in time, too. The Romulans have arrived in force and are attacking the Enterprise. Commodore Stalker is completely useless, staring at the view screen while the Romulans pound the Enterprise with a series of disruptor blasts, frozen in terror. Chekhov's like, "Shit, man, at least scream or something." In sickbay, Spock comes in with a little flask of serum and says, "Okay, this is either the cure or it will set your blood on fire." Kirk's like, "Give it to me first. I've got to save my ship." So they give Kirk a shot of the serum, and he writhes around on the bed like Dr. Jekyll turning into Mr. Hyde, or vice versa, I guess. And he's young again just in time to come bounding off the elevator onto the bridge to take command back from Stalker. Yay! Kirk orders Uhura to send a message to Starfleet using Code 2 on purpose this time, knowing the Romulans have broken that code and will understand the message. In the message, Kirk informs Starfleet that since the Enterprise is surrounded by Romulans with no possible escape, he's about to trigger their recently installed Corbomite self-destruct device, which will not only destroy the Enterprise, but everything else within 200,000 kilometers. The Romulans hear that and immediately back off, which gives the Enterprise an opening to jump to warp speed and get the fuck out of there. Stalker says to Kirk, "Sorry I almost got everybody killed by flying us into enemy territory as literally my first act upon assuming command, but I was just doing the best I could." Kirk's like, "No worries. You're a feckless desk jockey, a useless pusher of papers, a weak-willed bureaucrat who pisses down his own leg at the first sight of trouble. I never expected any more from you, you disgusting, poor excuse for a human being." McCoy, looking much more himself now, arrives to announce that he and Scotty have been cured, so now it's Spock's turn. McCoy's like, Because you're a Vulcan, I've prepared a much stronger shot for you. It's probably the only chance I'll ever have to kill you and get away with it, so I'm going for it. Of course, there is also the possibility that it will cure you of the disease. There's a cute little exchange between Kirk and Sulu, where Kirk gives an order and Sulu repeats the order, and Kirk's like, hey, didn't I just say that? And then presumably Kirk goes to his quarters with Dr. Wallace and helps her forget all about her dead husband. The end! I won't tell you The Deadly Years is a classic episode or Star Trek at its very best. It's not. Like many classic Trek episodes, it's a little slow and repetitive and at times feels like the creators are struggling to fill out the runtime, but it does have its moments, and during those moments it is a hell of a lot of fun and sometimes surprisingly clever. The main draw of episodes like this one, which we will see repeatedly throughout this batch of reviews, is getting to see the cast play older versions of their characters. There's always an inherent entertainment value in that concept, and it's increased here by what a hammy bunch the classic Trek cast are. James Doohan doesn't get much of an opportunity to show us Old Man Scotty, which feels like a missed opportunity, but his colleagues make up for it, especially William Shatner and DeForest Kelley. This is the first of 2 times we see Old Man McCoy, the second being his cameo in the TNG pilot episode Encounter at Farpoint. Though the 2 performances come 20 years apart, DeForest Kelley makes the same delightful choice both times. The older McCoy gets, the more conspicuously Southern he becomes. By the time we get to the end, he looks and sounds ready to vote in favor of secession. I assume it's only the limitations of NBC's broadcast standards and practices that spared us from McCoy turning to Spock and unleashing a torrent of racist abuse so blistering it peeled the paint off the walls. But, obviously, if it's Star Trek and there's hammy acting to be done, nobody's going to be able to stand up to Shatner. His Old Man Kirk lacks the regional specificity of Kelly's Old Man McCoy, but he makes up for it by turning the aged Kirk into an, I think, unintentionally hilarious parody of an elderly person. Old Man Kirk shuffles from place to place, stutters and stammers, gestures stiffly but emphatically with his gnarled hands. It's almost vaudevillian in its broadness. However, if I left it there, I wouldn't be giving Shatner's performance its due. Because, yes, it's funny and over the top, but in the middle of that, Shatner does find a way to communicate Kirk's stubbornness and utter lack of self-awareness, and he does that very effectively. The dramatic focal point of the episode winds up being Kirk's refusal to relinquish command of the Enterprise after it's become obvious that he's no longer fit for duty, and Shatner, for as cartoonish as this performance gets, makes that believable. He plays Kirk convincingly in this aspect as a man who is unwilling to admit that he is no longer able to do his job, the job from which he derives his sense of purpose and identity, even if holding on to it endangers everyone else. He denies his obvious decline, he snaps at being corrected, he blames others for his mistakes, and he insists that none of the faculties he has lost were necessary anyway. So what if I can't walk right or use my arms? Being a captain is all about the brain, and my brain is a good brain, a strong brain. Isn't that right, young lady? What did you say your name was again? Are you my granddaughter? Leonard Nimoy gets to play Old Man Spock, but he's not having as much fun as his co-stars. Spock wears the effects of the aging disease better than the others, so Nimoy mostly just plays him as increasingly tired. The entire episode is centered on the effects of the anti-aging disease, which gives it a singular focus. I appreciate the effort, but this is one episode where a B-plot centered on something only semi-related to the main storyline might not have been such a bad idea, because this one really drags. The competency hearing in particular is a slog. It's an effective method to burn up some more screen time, and it does at least put Kirk's denial of his condition front and center. But the hearing itself is just characters testifying to things we've already seen, and the result is a foregone conclusion. Plus, the character with the most lines is low-battery Old Man Spock. None of that makes for gripping drama. There's a moment where Spock calls on Dr. McCoy for testimony, and we cut to a shot of McCoy sleeping in his chair. And I'm like, I'm right there with you, Doc. However, the episode pulls it together in time to stick the landing. With the Enterprise on the verge of being destroyed by the Romulans, the freshly cured Kirk returns to the bridge and bluffs his way out of danger in classic Captain Kirk fashion. And I do mean literally classic Captain Kirk, because he plays one of his greatest hits for the Romulans, making the exact same threat to blow up the ship and everybody else using the fictional substance Corbomite that he did in order to get out of a jam in the first season episode, the Corbomite Maneuver. It's a bit lazy to have him do the exact same thing that he did in a previous episode, but this episode makes it work by throwing in the twist of having Kirk intentionally transmit the Corbomite bluff using the encryption key that he knows the Romulans have broken. That beat between Kirk and Uhura is the best moment of the episode for me. Code 2 has been mentioned twice before, so it's well established. We know what it is. When the cured Kirk orders Uhura to use it, at first she isn't sure. She starts to contradict him. But he makes it clear that he meant to say Code 2, that he knows what he's doing this time. And Uhura trusts him. The first time Kirk ordered her to use Code 2, it was a sign he was failing. This time, when Kirk orders Uhura to use Code 2, it's confirmation that he's back. It's a nice piece of writing at the end of an episode that has leaned heavily on things other than its script. It's easy to laugh at the old age makeup now, especially since we know none of these people looked anything like this when they actually got old, but for a TV show in the 1960s, it's not terrible. Lieutenant Galloway looks like a character from a Twilight Zone episode wearing a cursed mask at one point, but for the most part, the makeup gets the point across, and that's the most important thing. As the characters grow older, their costumes get slightly bigger as well, to suggest their increasing frailty, which is a nice, subtle touch. The Deadly Years is written by David P. Harmon and directed by arguably the best director Star Trek the original series had, Joseph Pevney, and it's fine. At times, it feels like it's been assembled from off-the-shelf parts. Kirk meeting an ex-girlfriend and contending with an unqualified administrator who wants to take control of the mission are both elements we've seen before. And it drags terribly in spots, but it's primarily an excuse to put the main characters in old age makeup and give them permission to overact even more than usual. And when it gives itself over fully to that premise, it's quite enjoyable. It's almost worth sitting through the whole episode just to see Kirk's enraged yet hushed response to Spock telling him he's been relieved of command. "You traitorous, disloyal, you stab me in the back the first chance you get." No Emmy for that? He had to wait like another 40 years to win one? Unbelievable. Those are my thoughts on the Deadly Years. What do you think of this episode? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, and I sure wish you would if you can afford it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or by making a one-time gift by clicking the thanks button, or via PayPal or Venmo. Links are in the description. Please join me next time as this batch of reviews of wacky aging episodes continues with a look at another episode of Star Trek the original series. This one doesn't feature a regular character who ages rapidly, but rather a guest character who doesn't age at all. The episode is titled Requiem for Methuselah. See you next time for that. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.